May 10th, 2022. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Beagle,
I am here.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Here.
Councilmember Gotchel,
Here.
Councilmember Grunland Fox is excused, Councilmember Sharp,
Present.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda tonight is presented. City Manager Brown.
Yes, Your Honor, I do have an addition to the agenda for a walk-on report relating to telephone-related monthly recurring service charges that we would like to have brought before council for discussion. That would be an addition, and then depending on where you place it, potentially a change as well, so depending on where council would like to entertain it.
We do have a representative here tonight for that.
Yes.
Okay, so let's move that to new business number 1 and move the others down accordingly.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any others?
No, I do not have anything else.
Any from the dais? All right. Moving on, approval of minutes. We got one set of minutes to approve tonight, and that's from the regular city council meeting of April 26, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So support.
Any questions, comments, corrections? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting of April 26, 2022. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. One item of correspondence tonight, and that's a notice of hearing for the customers of DTE Electric Company, case number U-20827. Moving on to the first call to the public. I'll read the rules to the call to the public. They are as follows. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reason for addressing the council. And all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do I have anybody for the first call to the public? All right, seeing none, I'll close the first call to the public. We'll move on to city managers' reports. We got 2 tonight. First one is the fire monthly report of March 2022. Any questions for interim chief Geisler? Come on, it's the first meeting. We got to give him some grief.
I was looking. Somebody make something up.
All right, police monthly report, March 2022. Any questions? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
You like him? Hello, PSD.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I noticed in the March 2022 report that there were 5 vehicle thefts, and I've heard from some of the association presidents of recent ones as well. Any message out to the public on that you want to put in for the record?
Sure. I can tell you for the month of March, that caught my attention as well. We had 1 trailer, 2 Grand Cherokees, a Kia, and a Ford Escape. The Grand Cherokees seemed to be a vehicle that the thieves take note of, as well as the Dodge Chargers, the Dodge Challengers. I guess the message for the public is, obviously, if you're able to secure your vehicle in a garage, certainly I know not everyone's able to do that, but if you're able, put your vehicle secured somewhere, and obviously keep it locked.
Are you hearing anything from neighboring communities with an uptick as well? Or?
Yes, I am. Catalytic converters and vehicle thefts are still a continued problem in this Lakes area.
Lock them up in garages.
If you're able, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished new business. We'll have a motion.
So moved. Support.
All right, I got a motion and support to approve the consent agenda for tonight as presented. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no unfinished business, which moves us to a discussion. It's a Charter Review Committee notes. With us tonight, we have our City Attorney, Deborah Whaling, to answer any questions that we have on this. City Manager Brown or Assistant City Manager, do you guys want to give a highlight on this?
I would defer to our Assistant City Manager on this who participated in the discussions there.
For the Charter Review Committee?
Or actually, you didn't, did you?
No.
Cheryl was on it, so I guess I can't defer to him. I misremembered. So no, we can go ahead and get started on that, Your Honor. I apologize.
Well then, Councilmember Gottschall, do you want to give us a brief update on what happened, what's going on?
Thank you. So we met as a Charter Review Amendment Committee to review over a series of 3 meetings the charter, put together our notes with the goal of bringing all of our notes, once complete, to City Council for discussion, to get everybody's opinions, and also, I guess, at some point soon, hopefully, to decide on which amendments, if any, we want to pursue for the November election, and then hopefully work with the attorney to draft the appropriate ballot language, vote on that to go on the ballots. So the notes were originally provided as they came out of our committee, and then tonight we were provided with the attorney's notes here on some of them. So I guess we just want to take it section by section. That might be the best way to address the discussion. It looks like some of these wouldn't be necessary changes, but we wanted to bring up anything that was sort of a question mark in our minds. That way we can better understand the charter, but also have a discussion at the council level as to what we want to do, if anything. So
Councilmember Smiley?
I was going to add, follow up. Yeah, as we went through the entire charter, our goal was to just shake out anything that is just outdated. Perhaps we're not following, or perhaps it's just something we need to change to. At one point, we had wanted to prioritize them, but I think that's better done kind of tonight as a group. What's critical here and what's maybe the lawyer can, Ms. Walling can clean up a few of the items without having to go to the people about them. But as we go through them, you'll see, I don't want anyone to think that all of these things are, hot and heavy items. There's a couple of them that we'll want more discussion than others, but they're just in order of chapter by chapter. There's no priority set to them yet. Is that about summing up, Councilman Gunn? And worth also mentioning, Councilwoman Tia Grunland Fox was also part of the committee that rooted through the charter, but unfortunately she's not here tonight, but she's well represented in what we shook out of the charter as well.
And Your Honor, just to clean up my mistake, the staff members that supported the committee were Cheryl Lucas out of my office, and then Kathy Buck, our city clerk, and also the deputy clerk at times as well, Crystal Buck.
Sorry, yes, and they were great.
All right, so I guess let's go over this as quickly as we can, and then at the end of it, we'll do discussion on what we feel, the ones that we should move forward with. Does that sound about right? Yep. Okay. All right, the first item is the general, and it's a general amendment addressing the use of he pronoun throughout the charter to change them to he, she, they. Correspondence, the city charter states that the singular number shall include the plural number shall include the singular, and the masculine gender shall extend to and include the feminine gender and the neuter. Any discussion on Councilmember Merman?
frankly, it's probably time that we make sure that all of our language is in line with the current terms of society, and I would support this particular change if it can be done in one amendment, which it looks like our city attorney said they could do. I just wouldn't want to have 100 different charter amendments going through.
No, yeah. We're gonna go ahead. Feel free to speak up when you feel like it's.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone. It was my pleasure to look through, try to answer the questions that were posed by the committee. They were very good questions, and with respect to this one, I did contact the Attorney General's office right off the bat to see, are we dealing with multiple amendments or just one to accomplish it? And I was advised that it can be done in one, but you do have to go through the entire charter. I assume you've done amendments before where you have to show them the before and after. We'll have to go through and show the whole before and after. Just so you're aware of that. It's, again, not a problem. It could be done. And we would pose one question to the voters on that change. And it has been done in 2 communities, I noted.
You also do state that the city charter that's referenced there, 16.1B, does basically clarify that.
You already have, the gender neutrality provision and your catch-all provisions at the end of your charter currently. But if you were to make wholesale changes in the text, it would require a charter amendment.
So it's just whether you're satisfied with 16.1B or you feel you should make the change throughout the charter.
Councilmember Gatchell?
Given even what's in the charter still, for the final section, I would still be in favor, I guess, of pursuing the change. I don't know that neuter is the appropriate term for people, so I don't feel like that it encapsulates today. So that is one that everyone felt necessary, and obviously one of the first ones that came up as well when we got into the charter amendments.
Councilmember Sharp?
I think we've covered it in 16.1B, and I don't want to appear insensitive because I'm sensitive to that in society and people's needs for individuality and expressing their own genders the way they want to. I do think we've covered it, and I'm concerned that we might confuse more than we solve with putting an entire city charter out there and maybe miss something in there. I mean, we got to do he, she, they, him, her, them. I'm not sure how many other conjugations there are. It does seem extensive and laborious for something that I think is already covered in 16.1B, covering all possible genders as individuals view themselves. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's pretty explanatory in 16B, but what the majority wants. So it just seems like a lot of work changing.
Yeah. Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we were hoping this would be something that wouldn't need to be on the ballot. We could just, it's just proper writing, I guess, or for our time anyway. But if it's, we've got it covered at least so that no one is offended, with 16B, 16.1B, then, I agree. I don't want to have too many items asked of the public, in one voting. So, like I said, some of these are a priority issue, and although I forget who said, I think it came from, I forget who said, it's better to put all of these items on a ballot rather than break them up, because my initial thought was, well, we can sprinkle out the next couple of years with these cleanups that we want. But was it you, Steve, who said that it's not the best idea? Or somebody in one of our meetings said that. You were about to raise your hand, so I thought maybe you were claiming it. So there's that consideration too, is that we definitely don't want to give it high quantity of items for the voters, and confusing them won't do us any good either. So, I agree.
Okay, we'll move on to Chapter 1. There will be no changes in Chapter 1. Chapter 2, Section 2.2.h. Why do we have a 3-mile rule? Minutes from the City Charter Commission or City Council meeting, if this was added as a City Charter amendment, could be reviewed to determine for the reason for this provision.
So this is one, it's talking under municipal powers. That section says we may maintain a plan of streets and alleys within the city, I would assume, and for a distance of not more than 3 miles beyond municipal limits. And so we didn't understand the point of us having a plan for streets and alleys outside of the city of Wixom. I'm not sure if that rings bell to Tim as to any reason at all we would need that in there. Again, not a super pressing issue, but one that was more of like when we talk about housekeeping issues, that would be one of them. I would categorize that because it just doesn't make any sense to what we're doing at a city level. So if we can remove it, then it seems like that would probably be the best way to go, but not super pressing.
Any comment, Tim?
This is primarily for roads. I think the only thing I can think of is we do have a memorandum of understanding with the Village of Milford, or the Township of Milford, for sanitary sewer items, and some of those do go along roadways. That would be one aspect, but I really can't think of any other ones. I know we go outside of Wixom on Moon Lake Road and plow all the way to Benstein, so that one would be part of that potentially. But we have a memorandum of understanding with that as well. So for winter maintenance, we do that. But I can't think of any other ones at this time.
There's some theory about just to recognize the type of roadway you're dealing with, and then, when you go beyond the borders, you have an idea of what's going on with the roadway, and that would address the need for that consideration. Does that make any kind of sense?
There is that consideration. We do work with the Road Commission on tri-party issues, and some of those could, for example, the 12-mile ones that we're working on currently, and then you also have Grand River that extends through there, and we're working on that. Then Pontiac Trail and Wixom too, so yes, and then MDOT as well. So there are parts that we would be outside of the city and still have projects for the city.
Are those related strictly to the street or alley though? Like this whole section, it begins with, in addition to the powers possessed by the city under the Constitution and statutes, and those set forth throughout this charter, the city shall have the power with respect to and made by ordinance and other lawful acts of its officers provide for the following, subject to any limitations in this charter. So it's just like a very odd one, because another section talks about streams, and it doesn't say 3 miles for that, it just says within our city borders.
Within our city borders. The only other aspect, listening to it once more, is the officer issues. So for traffic safety, we do have our traffic safety items that may go through that, and if they see them driving through on Pontiac Trail and they go into Milford Township, for example, we can still have a potential to ticket, maybe.
If a Wixom police officer observes a violation in the city of Wixom, the officer is permitted to go into another jurisdiction to make the traffic stop.
At any distance?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Berman?
I guess my reading of this is possibly this was just something here when the city was first formed. Obviously, potentially the other communities around us weren't necessarily taking care of the roads, so we wanted to have the ability to maintain the roads and possibly, that's how a lot of cities expanded and grew by, annexing more land. But I don't necessarily know if it's needed anymore, but I definitely don't think that this is one we need to make a priority now. There's a lot of other things that we wanted to make a priority.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Mr. Mayor, if I will, we're already, 16 minutes into this discussion, and we're on the second point of 28. Maybe we should make a consideration to table this, let us digest the attorney's comments, which we're only seeing tonight, and take this up at either a special meeting or a later agenda meeting, because we do have members of the public that are here for the actual new business. Again, the council can decide, but this is suggestion.
There's a motion, I second it.
Well, let's see, we got 16. We could even do half tonight, half if you want, but whatever council prefers here. And I also, if that's what we're going to do, that's fine, but let's also come back. I don't think we need to go to the voters with 15 or 20 proposals on the ballot on November. It's already going to be crazy enough as it is. I think maybe let's take the top 5 or 4 or 5 from this and put that on the ballot.
Perhaps we could do kind of like a ranking like we did with the goals, where we could each submit our top 5, and then the city manager's office could present those back to us to further discuss if we want to move them forward this year.
When is the latest we have to have everything to be put on the ballot?
Mr. Mayor, technically it's in August, but the Secretary of State issued a memorandum, and the governor joined in that, saying that they want those 60 days in advance of the deadline. If you're talking about November, then we're really talking about having a resolution with ballot wording done by mid-June for this November.
Councilmember Gatchel.
I wouldn't be in favor of pushing this more meetings. I would say if we want to move it to the final item and just rearrange the agenda so we can let members of the public leave if they want to leave and whatnot, but I don't know that. The whole point of tonight was to enable discussion amongst us, not to just say, hey, it's going to take too long, everyone send in your rankings, and then that's what we'll discuss, because even though things might not be the most pressing, they were still things that we thought should be discussed. So I guess that would be my concern, is that we just bypass some of this stuff because it doesn't make the top 5. So I'd rather, I wouldn't table it necessarily so much as just rearrange the agenda this evening.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councilman Gatchel, I disagree on this a little bit. I'm sorry, we've spent a couple of years getting to the point where we got this task force to review it. As you can all see, there's a lot here worth discussing. I don't feel there's any rush. It'd be great if we could get items onto the November ballot, but if this bumps into next year, but we do it all and digest it all at the right time, I don't think there's any problem with that. We've already cleaned up a couple of, we cleaned up the one last election, on the, from the charter that we needed, the limit for the city manager. And I'm not suggesting we do one at a time here and there, but I think none of what we shook out of here was on fire, pressing item that's causing problems. I like the idea of just taking whatever time is necessary. We've already taken a healthy amount of time to get to this point, and now it's happening. We're doing it. So let's not rush this. This is a lot, and I want to make sure it gets done right. That said, I do wonder if, Councilman Gotcha, is there a couple items on here you want to talk about to, you know, before people take it with them? Just kind of, you know, the top couple of items. At least get those just sort of not discussed, but introduced so that, you know, the rest of the council kind of knows what they're looking at when they see, you know, an item in the middle of these 4 or 5 pages that's maybe a little hotter than others.
I would say no. I mean, everyone's had their packets for a few days now. The attorney answers are helpful, but, and the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's nothing that was like earth-shattering in the responses that should take more time to digest. It was kind of, hey, this is necessary or not necessary, or it's already covered in this other section, not some crazy legal wrangling that needs to happen. So I don't know that there are ones that I would highlight. I think they're all worthy of discussion.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Madam Clerk, what would the process be to move it from where we are right now to the end of the agenda?
You would postpone it.
Postpone it?
Or I'm sorry, table it.
Okay.
Table it to the, yes, table it.
What's council's preference on this? I've got to agree with Councilmember Smiley on this. Is there's a lot of changes here, but I don't see any of these that really we need to rush and get on right away. It's here. Let's take our time. Let's go over them. Let's get it right, and get the ones that we want on the ballot. If it's the first election after the November election, well, so be it. Councilmember Berman.
Mr. Mayor, there was a motion to table on the second. I'd like to call a question.
So we get a motion.
There already was a motion to table with a second, so I'd just like for us to vote on that this time.
All right. Okay, I got a motion and a second to table the discussion of the Charter Review Committee notes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, do we really have a discussion on that motion? Because the clerk said tabling it, moved it to the end of the agenda.
No.
That was what we talked about.
The motion was to table it, not to postpone it.
She said postpone first, then she said table. I remember. I don't want to talk about it tonight, is what we're saying. Is that
correct?
Okay, that's what I'm voting on. I vote yay to that motion. I didn't.
Point of clarification maybe. Kathy, when we table something, it could be to the end of the meeting or it could be to the next meeting. Tabling it.
I think if you're going to discuss it at a future meeting, you're going to postpone it.
Oh, then we're not using the right term. We don't want to table it to the end of the meeting. We want to postpone it to another meeting, correct? Is that what?
Tabling it is postponing it to another meeting. Postponing it would be at the end of the meeting, correct?
I think it's the other way around. If you want to table it, you're still going to discuss it tonight. You're just going to move it further down the agenda. If you want to postpone it, you're going to talk about it at a future meeting.
Can I rescind the motion?
Sure can.
I rescind my second.
It already passed.
So then we need to do one?
Okay.
Since
I'm going to point out,
I'm going to defer to the attorney on this.
I can, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying that, you know, it stays on the table until you remove it from the table. So that could either be at the end of the meeting, somebody could motion to remove it from the table, bring it back if that's approved, or it stays on the table until you take it from the table.
You have to remove it from the table, bring it back into discussion. That could be today, it could be next week, it could be next year.
So we're good. We're good then.
So we're good.
Yes, so?
All right. But I do believe we need to take a roll call on that.
Okay.
Robert's rules.
Councilmember Smiley?
Yes. I couldn't remember.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes.
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gaccio?
No.
Councilmember Sharp?
Aye.
I don't laugh at you.
5 yes, 1 no.
All right, so Charter Review Committee notes have been tabled. Moving on to new business number 1 is a recommendation to approve a 36-month contract for Voice over Internet Protocol Primary Rate Interface Services, VoIP PRI services with Telnet Worldwide of Madison Heights, Michigan for a projected annual cost of $5,616. Approve a 60-month contract with Ethernet Private Line EPL service connecting remote facilities with 123.net of Southfield, Michigan for a projected annual cost of $8,640 and authorize the city manager to sign the agreements. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
City Manager Brown, I will defer this to you since it was an add-on.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the report's fairly complicated. It's a little bit of a thick subject, and I appreciate council bearing with me on the walk-on. Long story short, we've got this situation where we have T1 lines that are carrying traffic, if you will, between City Hall and the Department of Public Works and City Hall and the Fire Department. It's something that AT&T is in charge of. Those copper lines AT&T has control of. It's something AT&T doesn't want to utilize any longer. And we thought we had longer to work with in terms of wrapping up the finalization of this kind of a report for you. Unfortunately, the development that kind of drove this was that AT&T decided to incentivize us getting off of it on a sooner basis, and they passed on a $5,000 price increase on a monthly basis to the current telephone provider, which is Telnet, to the city. Because of that, we brought it forward as a walk-on item, so that's the reason for it. I do apologize for the lateness of its presentation. So what we have here in front of you is the result of a process that we've gone through. We have Altronics that works with us on the existing phone equipment and phone system that we have in place. They work with a company called GTS Telecom out of the city of Detroit as an outside consultant for situations like this. GTS Telecom is a company that we utilized in the past to actually go through the prior establishment of the current service that the city has with our telephone service. And we, through Altronics, asked that GTS get involved again. GTS got involved. They have relationships with over 40 telecom providers in the area. They solicited for proposals for our service, and our service in this case is going to break down in 2 different ways. One is going to be a voice over IP PRI to carry the phone traffic over the public internet. That would be a portion of the action before you tonight. The recommended action that came back will be discussed in a moment. The second piece of it was to come up with a replacement for those T1 lines. Not only was AT&T imposing that onerous cost increase, but they were also basically saying, regardless of what you do or don't do, it's not going to be available to you after June 30th. So that was off the table. So we had to have something put in place to replace that. GTS solicited for proposals. There were 2 responses on the telephone service, one from Telnet, the existing provider, and then one from 123.net. 123.net is proposing to use fiber optic cable to provide the service, whereas Telnet is proposing to use voice over IP, which would utilize the public internet to carry the phone traffic. There is a pro on the 123.net approach in that when you have a fixed line on a piece of fiber optic cable, you're likely going to have greater reliability and you're going to have possibly greater clarity of calls as well. The downside to that was that it was a 47% cost premium over the proposal from Telnet. As a result of that, with those 2 proposals, we're recommending tonight to proceed with a 3-year agreement with Telnet to establish our phone service over voice over IP at the lower cost point. And that cost point is $468 a month, as my memory serves, and I believe that works out to that $5,616 annually that's reflected in the recommendation. That's on a 3-year contract. There was a 5-year contract option that we received later when we asked for it, but there was no cost advantage to that. There was no cost decrease to it, so we're recommending to proceed with the 3-year agreement at that $5,616. The second piece of it was the replacement for the T1s that are going to no longer be available. And that proposal, there was only one proposal that was received by GTS when they solicited for proposals, and that was from 123.net. They also submitted on the phone service, but they were the only proposal submitted for replacement of the T1, and they're proposing to use something that's called an Ethernet private line service to connect the City Hall to the Fire Department and City Hall to the Department of Public Works. That connection is going to allow us to have phone traffic. It's a radio-based system. It'll be an antenna on each structure that'll be sending out the communications over a radio signal. And the cost on that is provided on a 3-year or a 5-year basis. The 3-year cost was at $526 per circuit. We need 2 circuits. So that's $1,052 of cost on a monthly basis. The other alternative was the 5-year service agreement, and under that, that's $360 per line, so that's $720 for a month's service on those lines. That results in a cost differential of about $4,000, so in that case, we're recommending to proceed with the 5-year service agreement with 123.net to provide those radio service lines, if you will, or circuits to provide telecommunication service between the 2 sets of facilities, the City Hall and Fire and City Hall and DPW. It'll carry voice traffic, it'll carry the auto attendant, so like when you call in at City Hall and want to press 4 to get connected to the fire department, it will allow that to still happen. It would allow the voicemail system to still function as it currently functions. So those are the 2 recommendations that we're making for you this evening to proceed in that fashion. And again, the cost on that one, I don't know if I ever said on an annual basis, is $8,640 at that $720 per month.
We have a representative here tonight too, correct?
That's correct. We have Matt Osowski from
Okay. How tall are these towers that are going to go on the building?
from Altronics.
If I may answer?
Come up to the microphone, please.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
The towers are actually very small. They're just a little mast antenna, a couple of feet.
Okay.
They're not going to be any tall, visible item. Essentially what's happened, the city is all on one phone system. DPW, the fire department, and City Hall, plus the library are all connected to each other. AT&T wants to get out of maintaining the copper wiring that's around in the air on the telephone poles, so they're pricing those circuits very expensive to force you to get off to use alternate technologies. One of those alternate technologies is the radio signal that you'd be getting from 123.net. The system will operate the same way that it currently does. We're just changing the way the 2 types of service are being provided.
And bad weather won't affect it or anything like that?
No, well,
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question about 5 years and 3 years. The technology is changing exponentially. It seems like we're locking ourselves into something that, I don't know what we're going to be using next year, but I'll bet 5G has something to do with it, or 12G, or however many Gs there are, and we don't need little mast antennas, and we're on, I don't know, it just feels like locking ourselves into 5 years. Is there an alternate? Can we just do a year and figure this out, or 2 years? Or, I mean, again, this is the second time, and I was talking with one of my fellow council members beforehand. We talked about police several months ago, and it came in like the night of the meeting. And we had a bit of an arm-twisting session trying to force us to vote for a telephone system that maybe we didn't fully understand. I'm kind of feeling that way now. And here we're talking about 5 years. I had 5 minutes to look at this. And we're talking about a 5-year commitment at $8,000 a year. You know, that's not outrageous amount of money. So I don't really know there was a question in there, but I'm just wondering what's going to change. You know, what's the next year's technology that rules this is obsolete as copper wires are this year?
Yeah, Councilmember Sharp, I share your concern on this. I understand that to be an issue from your perspective, and I share the concern potentially. The reality of the situation is with the geography of things, basically we've exchanged a monopoly of one for a set of smaller monopolies in some respects. So from a geography standpoint, we don't have a lot of options here, and we don't have any negotiating strength on the contract either, frankly. So I share your concern. 5 years is a decently long period of time. 3 years is much preferable compared to 5 years, but the math on the differential between the pricing on that 123.net proposal is like $4,000 per year. So over a 3-year term, we cost ourselves nearly $12,000 if we went with that on something that costs $8,640, $24,000, $25,000 for 3 years. If it was at the better pricing, it's going to go up to $37,000, $38,000 if we do it at the 3-year pricing. I appreciated the flexibility of the 3-year period, but I just couldn't do it I couldn't make the recommendation based on the cost. And we don't have a lot of negotiation strength. I don't know if Mr. Osowski.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing to it. The city manager and I also concluded a meeting this afternoon. We're probably less than a third of the way into the life expectancy of your phone system here. So by signing this agreement for 5 years, we fully anticipate that the existing phone system will still be here in 5 years. It's probably got another 5, 7, 10, 15 years left on it. So those services that you signed tonight will still be needed in 3 years or 5 years here on this existing system.
Yeah, that's a good point to make, right? So we have an existing piece of equipment that's
Hardware limitations you're talking about.
Correct, right. This NEC SV9100 system that we have, and I was pleased to hear from Mr. Osowski here that it's got a potentially 10 to 15 year additional life cycle in front of it. That's the good news. The bad news is you're not going to be getting too far afield from the current situation with that existing hardware. So later on, if we could come up with something that's going to save us a great deal of money, we'd be expending money on hardware that might offset that. So that's kind of where the recommendation comes in to proceed with this for this 5-year term on the one and 3 years for the other. The other alternative is having them both go to 5 years, but there was no cost factor savings on the 3-year proposal from Telnet, so that's why there's a 3-year term on that one and a 5-year term on the 123.net.
So just the one other thing I'd like to add from the conversations that we've had about our current system and really our service options is that we looked at that 3 to 5, 3 years for one service and 5 years for the other. You're right, it is a bit of a lock-in, but as infrastructure improvements happen, as other companies look to expand their networks for these new fiber lines and other types of options, we think that 3 to 5 years is a good opportunity for us to have a feel for what other options we'll have, right? There will be more, hopefully, than just one choice for accomplishing a certain requirement, right, to be able to connect our phone lines or whatever. So really, it kind of gives us a better runway to plan for getting to those points as well. I just wanted to add that was a big part of our discussion.
And we don't have the contract in front of us, but will we have an opt-out in that contract? Like a 60-day notice to opt out, or are we stuck for the 5 years?
No. And we had the agreements looked over by the city attorney, Carol Rosati, actually, and she pointed out all of those things, but the reality is, again, the negotiating strength isn't very good from our perspective. So there's not a lot of changes we can demand, and Matt has told us that those agreements aren't being negotiated on a point-by-point basis by telecom providers.
That's a regulated industry, so the telecom company is locked in for billing you. There's no negotiation on that.
Yeah. Councilmember Gacho.
So going over the email that was sent out as a heads up, and then this as well, I guess I'm still trying to work out. So we're going to do everything. Who's our telephone provider after all this? Still somehow AT&T, or is it 123.net?
It'll be Telnet providing the service.
Okay. So, and that's just for our remote buildings, and we'll still work with AT&T?
No, that's for all of the buildings.
Okay.
All telephone service will be provided through that Telnet contract.
Okay, and it's $2,100 more expensive per month than our current contract before they increase it $5,000 a month.
Right, I mentioned that in some of the information I provided. There's if that $5,000 charge were absorbed for a single month, that would cover the next 2 years of cost increases plus $800.
And they said they're discontinuing the T1 at the end of next month, it sounded like.
June, right?
So would they be charging, if they're discontinuing it, what's the charge?
There wouldn't be a charge, but we wouldn't have phone service to those other facilities.
Okay. I know it was within the last few years we discussed this, and we were told we absolutely have to have the AT&T T1 because of the copper, and there were no other options. I know because I asked. And so just like frustrating to see this come back up, and there are other options, because I know AT&T has been nothing but a hassle for our staff members, so it would have been nice. I feel like sometimes we get no as an answer instead of I don't know, and this, it sounds like there were more options than we were presented with last time, so.
Well, you might be referring to the police department situation, which does require something other than voice over IP, and that's why we did that Centrex contract that Councilmember Sharp mentioned in November. That was a situation where we did that contract and we paid a pretty penny for that service because, again, AT&T is not interested in that continuing, but they did allow that to continue on that Centrex contract service that was required for the police department. So when we were speaking of that particular service, we didn't have this alternative, but now that we're talking about the citywide service, we do have that alternative on everything that's outside of the police department.
So the police department will still be on their own then?
That's correct.
This, if I could add, this is not unique to Wixom. This is affecting everybody across the United States. It's being forced off of copper point-to-point circuits. So literally every business is changing service as you go.
Maybe the copper goes missing overnight.
I was going to ask who's going to get to scrap it, yeah, right? So.
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, AT&T does treat public safety completely different in all communities. I made this change within the last 2 years of my businesses as well. And while I don't have the distance of like our DPW to City Hall and all, but the EPL over wireless works perfectly well in all types of weather. We've not had any interruptions of service. I think we had one goose that knocked off the antennas one time. But one point of clarification as well, this is for the services agreement, right? Will any hardware have to be replaced at additional cost to the city?
No. One of the things that we went, when we asked GTS to get alternative services for you, we told GTS what equipment the city already owned and told them we wanted to reuse that if at all possible. So we are able to reuse the existing routers that the city has, providing those connections to the 2 remote offices. Those will work with the new EPL.
The existing routers, okay.
So no additional money.
Yeah, that was a big concern for us because that's a relatively, as you mentioned, it's got a pretty long life cycle on the equipment that handles all the traffic as well as the handsets that we have. So that was a concern, and we were careful to make sure that wasn't going to be an issue.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to approve a 36-month contract for Voice over Internet Protocol Primary Rate Interface Services, VoIP PRI services with Telnet Worldwide of Madison Heights, Michigan for projected annual cost of $5,616, and approve a 60-month contract with for Ethernet private line EPL service connecting remote facilities with 123.net of Southfield, Michigan for a projected annual cost of $8,640, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreements. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to new business number 2 is a recommendation to award a bid for the steel roof replacement on the Department of Works cold storage building to Royal Roofing Company of Orion, Michigan at a cost of $49,460 from DPW Storage Building Upgrades account number 411-441-979.390 in fiscal year 22-2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Very good. Mr. Sigma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, with all of the different supply chain issues that we've been looking at, we put this out to bid prematurely, if you will, so that we can make sure that the roof gets installed yet this year. And we anticipate a lead time going into potentially 5 to 6 months. So we put it out to bid, and we received one bid for the construction of the replacement of the roof in the cold storage building. If you're going up into the DPW yard, that would be the second building on the left that would be replaced. And we feel that this is, we've spoken with the contractor several different times. we feel that this is a reasonable price, and they are able to get that within this current year, not just, unfortunately, not this fiscal year. We have it budgeted for next year, but we want to, we're requesting to sign the contracts now so that we can make that order so that they can get it in this fall. Yeah.
I see here that it says the bidder also included a truss replacement cost at $4 a linear foot, which may be needed. If it's not needed, will the price come down?
It does, no, that's an additional charge, but looking at that, it may be 3,000 or 4,000 more.
But if it's an additional, why would they include it?
Well, we're
In the
once
bid,
they
the price.
once they tear it off, we don't want to replace more linear feet than we have to. But once we tear it off, we'll know whether or not there's rot or damage to those
So
trusses.
it could be more.
Yes, but a number it will not exceed our.
Okay, it's not going to exceed the
Yeah.
$49,460.
Yeah, no.
Okay, any questions? Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Mr. Sigmund.
Hi.
You mentioned in here that, part of doing this now is, some steel pricing concerns, which I appreciate. That's good. You also mentioned, some possible labor delays, which we're all kind of familiar with.
Yeah.
Do they have, do they have the materials, or is there potential for supply chain issues to?
Well, we're anticipating
Rear
some
cycling
supply chain issues.
Okay,
But
so
they are anticipating that they should still be able to acquire the.
Okay, so they factor that into
Yep.
when we get this done already?
Correct.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, that's the reason for the acceleration of this into this current fiscal year as opposed to wait until a later point in time, is because if we do it now, they've got that much longer to accumulate the material and be able to get it done in the construction season, in the typical construction season, as opposed to if we waited until after the fiscal year commences, we potentially have an issue getting that material in. So that's the reason for having this a little unorthodox ahead of the budget being adopted and some of the commentary that's in the report.
Well, I think it's a good idea to be doing that. Do that with more stuff too, maybe.
Might be.
All right, thank you, that's all I have.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award a bid for the steel roof replacement on the Department of Public Works cold storage building to Royal Roofing Company of Orion, Michigan at a cost of $49,460 from DPW Storage Building Upgrades account number 411-441-979.390 in fiscal year 2022-2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. New business number 3 is a recommendation to award a bid for digital outdoor signage at Sibley Park to Presido of Wixom, Michigan in the amount of $19,730 from Capital Improvements Civic Center account number 411-751-986.542. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Ms. McGee?
Hi. Good evening. Staff is recommending installing 2 digital outdoor signs on the exterior pillars over at Sibley Park at the gazebo. The digital signs are 55 inches high by 39 inches wide and designed for outdoor use and will provide a clear picture regardless of lighting conditions. This will provide event sponsors more exposure and a cleaner, sharper look for the park. So this will replace all the vinyl signs that we normally put on the fence and allow the sponsors to be displayed throughout the concerts on a regular basis. Questions?
Councilmember Berman?
Thank you. I guess my question would be, if a business was to come to us and want to do these signs, would this be allowed under our current sign ordinance? Because I don't believe they would be, and more importantly, what's going to be the frequency of them changing? Because I would believe that's provided in our ordinance, and I'm not a big fan of us doing something that our businesses couldn't do.
I did check with Carmen Aventini on the outdoor signage situation and the fact that we're not displaying them on a regular full-time basis. They would only be displayed from approximately 4 p.m. till about 9:30 p.m. during the concerts. So they're not a regular ongoing signage would be allowable.
Okay, so they're only going to be on during the concert? Okay. That makes a little bit more sense to me. I just wouldn't be in favor of them being on 24/7.
No. No, I did double check on
It's
it.
also not on a roadway, which is
Correct.
different situation as well, as far as that frequency of change and all kind of thing. That's because that's a potential for being distracting to people when they're driving. It's off the roadway. It shouldn't be that kind of issue.
Okay. That was my only concern by reading this. With those answers, I'm fine with this.
Okay, great.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Thank you. Hello, Ms. McGee. The question I had was, let's say a non-sponsor company within the city wanted to buy a spot during a concert because of the attendance or whatever. Would that be something that would be available to businesses throughout the city?
We would refer back to our sponsorship policy,
Okay.
because that would not be fair to the people that are sponsoring on a regular basis up front versus just, we get several requests from businesses that just want to come and put a tent up or whatever just to promote their business, and we don't allow it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Sherrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two questions, Ms. McGee. One, which of the 10 posts are these going on? Because I went and counted them today. There's 2 that are in the back, and there's 4 and then come way out. Any idea? You got?
Yes, they're the exterior ones that will allow
All
more
the way up.
visibility.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone else is in question, it's...
Thank you. You've got copies for that.
I got copies for everybody.
Why? They're all outside. I don't know if they're edge or not.
I think it'll make it look nice.
They're 55 by 30.
Oh, I was thinking they were wide, okay. 55 tall, not wide.
So, second question, I kind of like the idea, but what I don't like is the idea of a $19,000 asset sitting there unused for probably all told 364 days of the year with 8 hours or 24 hours of actual usage at the time during the... is there another use for them? What?
Yes, they'll be mounted during the summer for the summer concerts, but if there's another event or activity, we can make them portable and use them at the fire station or the park or wherever it may be needed for advertising.
Make them portable sounds like potential vandalism risk. Any thought to that?
Yes.
Or do you take them down after the shows?
You take them down.
Oh, so they're put away when they're not in
They'll be
use.
mounted for the summer unless we need them at a different event, but we won't be leaving them out in the winter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Cacho?
Thank you. I don't support this. When it comes to the downtown, and Councilmember Behrman kind of questioned it as well, I don't know that we've ever discussed having a time limit, I guess, for electronic signs, because we've talked about our main sign out front just not being within VCA standards, not that if it were only on 4 hours a day or something, that would be allowable. So I'm very much of the same mind that I don't like that as a city we're going to do things we don't let businesses do. I don't think that's a good sign of leadership. I also like the more natural look of the park. I mean, it's a nice gazebo. I don't know that we need electronic signs over there. I sat out right near the park in downtown Farmington for most of the day today working because it was a nice day. And they have a long vinyl sign out in their gazebo there with all the sponsors on it, and it's just a cleaner look. I feel like it's not necessary to have bright lights from a screen glaring at you while you're watching a band play. It also going to the point, I guess, of more advertisement for the sponsors. I don't think that's necessarily true, because those vinyl signs are up for the season and they stay up. So that's a lot more visibility throughout the summer than signs running a few hours once a week. So I think that would be a change to their visibility as a whole, because right now, if we had the vinyl signs, just as Farmington did that I mentioned earlier for their farmers market, people walk by all the time and they can see so-and-so business. And that is because vinyl sign's out. They don't see that if the digital sign isn't running because it's not a concert at that particular time. So this kind of harkens back to, I guess, projects that we like to do but don't need to do. I don't know that adding this is a benefit to any particular resident in the city. And it's just going to turn into something that we need to replace down the road. So to me, I'm a no on this. I don't think it is more attractive. I don't think it increases visibility for the sponsors, and I don't think it's beneficial in any meaningful way for our residents. So I'm a no. Thanks.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you. Hello, Dan.
Hello.
Yeah, help me just picture this a little bit better. So I can picture a digital screen in these spots. Our sponsor, a message, their logo, that kind of thing for the particular concert. How many different sponsors are there roughly?
Actually, in this current year, we have 32 total sponsors, which brings us in a total of $70,000 for our sponsorship program, as well as compared to 2021, we brought in $71,000 for sponsorship. So the sponsorship dollars do pay for the improvement.
Oh, well, that's good. But so I'm just trying to picture, so there'll be 32 different logos kind of rotating.
Correct.
Messages on these screens.
Correct.
Okay. And that's really all that's on there, is just the sponsored logos repeating.
Correct, unless there's a message the city is trying to get out at the same time.
Oh, yeah, we still left up too, yeah. But that's all it does. Yeah, see, we certainly give props and promote the sponsors to the events in other ways, and they're not expecting us to be promoting them in this way, correct?
That's what we have proposed, that we would like to do, if it's approved by council, to do it in a digital fashion.
The sponsors have been told we're going to try to do this?
That would be our attempt.
You're going to tell them if we approve it, but you haven't promised it to anybody yet?
No.
Okay, good. Because, yeah, I got similar issues with it that, Councilman Gottschall outlined. I don't think that's going to be a particularly good look, a bunch of logos rotating. And then, yeah, there's a little bit of problem with the hypocrisy of, one rule for others and not us. Okay, that helps me with a few things. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Maybe just one more ask regarding the asset utilization. Would, for example, the DDA, when they sponsored a Derby Day, be able to put the winners and rules and things like that on it? And sip and stroll, which businesses are participating?
Any information the city would like to get to the people. Currently, we announce it, which most people aren't listening to the sponsors. So
Hey, wait a minute.
Well,
Go for it.
the mayor.
Are you the
I'm trying to help you out there.
No, I think with that, I do support it. I also thought, at least last year, and we had some very windy days, and the tie wrap busted on a couple of them, and they were hanging cattywampus. And I think the vinyl sign look is kind of messy, especially towards the end of the year when they get soiled and whatnot. So I think I support this. Thank you.
Yeah, and with this, we can advertise the next week's concert. We can advertise the late tonight. We can do all that. So, all right, I can support this too. Any other questions? All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid for digital outdoor signage at Sibley Park to Pursuto of Wixom, Michigan, in the amount of $19,730 from Capital Improvements, Civic Center account number 411-751-986.542. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Mayor Beagle?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes?
Councilmember Behrman?
Yes.
Councilmember Gottschall?
No.
Councilmember Sharp?
No.
Councilmember Smiley?
No.
3 yes, 3 no.
Motion is denied. Moving on to new business number 4 is a recommendation to adopt the Memorandum of Understanding and Cooperative Services Agreement between the City of Wixom and the Wixom Downtown Development Authority for service cost sharing for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Assistant City Manager Benson, you've been working on this?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. This is an item that has come before City Council and the DDA and other bodies as a part of the joint meeting that we held back in March. The idea here is that historically the Wixom DDA has not directly contributed any funds to the city for services that the city provides to the DDA and within the district. That was mostly based on the DDA not having appropriate revenues to be able to do that and also accomplish their other responsibilities and obligations. Over the last couple of years, the DDA has, with the development that's happened downtown, is now in a much better financial position to not only meet their own bond obligations, their operational desires and plans, as well as also be able to contribute back to the city. They have also completed their bond repayments back to the city for bond payments that the city made on their behalf in past years when they were unable to. So with all that in mind, we viewed this as an opportunity to evaluate what the services are that the city provides and try to come up with an equitable arrangement for a contribution from the DDA to the city for those services. With that, we evaluated a variety of options while also trying to be cognizant of the DDA's overarching goals to promote development in the district, both for business development as well as on the residential side and for the necessary infrastructure to provide that. With all that in mind, we came up with this based on a series of calculations that a flat 5% is a reasonable kind of apportionment for the DDA as a component of the city as a whole. The DDA district comprises 4.8% of the city's total land area. The DDA captures approximately 6.2% of the total possible city tax revenue, and the DDA accounts for 5.8% of the city's total taxable value for this coming fiscal year. With all that in mind, and to decrease the administrative burden of trying to individually calculate each and every expenditure that could be potentially considered, we thought that this was a good kind of blanket arrangement, at least for the first year. This proposed memorandum of understanding is a one-year agreement that would be basically evaluated by both the DDA board and city council on an annual basis. This memorandum of understanding proposes that the DDA contribute 5% of the general fund operating budget for public works, the city finance department, the city manager's office, as well as 5% of the economic development functions of my position, as well as 50% to the city for budgeted costs related to downtown events such as Light the Night, holiday decorations, holiday tree lighting, hot blues and barbecue, fireworks, etc. All of the individual costs are broken down within the attachments to the agenda item. And in total, this proposed cost-sharing contribution from the DDA for this coming fiscal year 22-23 would be $157,000 and $366 in total. This is based on the budgeted amounts proposed by the city manager to city council, so it's in a sense subject to your final budget approval, but that is the tentative agreement amount. This agreement was presented to the DDA board and approved on April 26th, and therefore it is coming to you all for final approval.
Good. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Gacho?
Thank you. Relating to the 5%, we looked at land area, which I have a tough time coming up with a case for that. Possible tax revenue, we said 6.2%. The city is still collecting property taxes off of property within the DDA, correct? It's not like if we didn't have a DDA, that additional tax that is taxed to the property owners wouldn't exist, or what it's I don't believe so.
So it depends honestly on when what the taxable value of a given property was when the district was established. So the city receives the base value, our millage rate times the base value for each individual parcel. And our DDA specifically, it's kind of unique that a lot of the parcels didn't exist when the DDA was established, this particular plan in 2003. So with that, honestly, no, the city does not collect much or any property tax revenue from everything, I would say every new development since 2003.
Okay, in the area. And then we said about the 5.8% for the taxable value. For those were all roundabout 5, but when it comes to like our events for the DPW, for Derby Day recently, for example, does the 5% cover the amount of time that actually goes into all the work the DPW does in overtime? Like, I know we liked 5% because it's round these, but do we compare it to actual time at all?
Yes, we did. That was actually a part of when we were evaluating all of the possible ways to try to calculate this. The DPW does track their hours within the downtown district. One of the issues with that particular methodology was that it is variable. It depends on each month, even year-to-year comparison is different. Also, it depends on what the service levels are. So as an example, the services that the Public Works Department had provided, let's say 2 years ago, may not be a good comparison for the level of service that they provide, now for a given event, right? There may be a new event, or, there is also some concern about with the DDA also contributing to city-sponsored events. Is there kind of cross-pollination? The DPW does not specifically break out the hours they spend for the Downtown Development Authority. It's hours they spend in downtown in general. So in that sense, it became difficult to use the metrics that we capture currently to differentiate what is for the Downtown Development Authority and what may be otherwise attributable to just normal city functions that we do within the district, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I just fear that we're maybe taking a bit too much in certain areas. Like 5% of DPW is a larger budget, and we could say that they're using police services as well, but we're not throwing that in here. But 5% of the police budget would be astronomical to them. So that's my concern, is we're kind of picking and choosing. What is their resultant budget after this proposal? How much are they getting per year?
How much do they still collect total? It's projected for this coming fiscal year that they would still have revenues of just under $1 million in the $900,000 range. About half of that will go towards their required bond payments. They, operationally speaking, don't. They currently operate on approximately $130,000 a year, and the rest of their funds go towards capital improvements or putting away for kind of larger expenditures. So operationally, this does not have a significant.
So after DTA director and their bond payment and whatnot, you're at $400,000 for them to work with. It sounds like ish,
give or take.
Okay. The other thing that kind of caught my eye in looking through the letter is that when we talk about community services events, we list a few events, then we say and others, and there isn't really a way to negotiate those. It's kind of structured or worded in a way that we as a city could decide that we're going to do events downtown. We don't have to get their cooperation as a DDA, but they're on the hook for 50% of the events. So I know we wouldn't set out to do that, but just from a clarification standpoint, that is something that I think language-wise should be tightened up, because there is nothing that gives them mutual approval of a new event. I feel like maybe we should list what we currently have and then throw in something that states any future events shall be by mutual consent or something, just so they have a say. I don't want to get us into a habit of overruling them because we feel like an event would be cool and they don't feel like it, yet they need to.
Well, and that is addressed in, in the attachment where we break down the calculations. Those are very specific, and we specifically intended to tie this to the budgeting process for that exact reason, right? This agreement goes into place along with our budgeting practices. If the city decided after the adoption of the budget to go through that process into the coming fiscal year, all right, we're going to add a new event, well, that wasn't covered as a part of this 1 year sort of memorandum of understanding. And I think that's where, again, not that we would do that, but there is also some coverage for the DEA on that side.
Yeah, I get that it's in there, it's just not an addendum or an exhibit, and there's no reference to it in the letter. It's just something that was stapled on, basically. So I think that was just a clarification point for me. I want to make sure that we're leaving them with enough money. Right now, they've been in like marketing mode for current businesses, which is nice. You want to retain businesses. They've been pitching in to do capital improvements, like the money for the walkway, which was nice of them. But I think we also need to have a discussion about business attraction as well. Not just marketing what we have, but figuring out incentives to get people in. I know you've been working on that a bit as well. And so I want to make sure that we're leaving them enough funding to also accomplish that in addition to the other things. And so that's my worry, I guess, is if we're taking too much, more than we should in certain categories. So I don't know what the answer is there, but they've all approved it, it sounds like. So, but
well, and we were very, you're absolutely right. We were very intentional to not include everything that we could possibly think of, but really try to boil down to the nuts and bolts of things they do take advantage of, in partnership with.
The last bit, though, is with the events, and I believe it's come up before, those are all funded by donations. I've heard or been told in the past.
They're not entirely funded by, there are donation contributions that help support those events, but the DDA also, we do joint sponsorship. We send out our sponsorships together already anyways. So really, actually, we view this as an opportunity to tighten up that relationship as well, right? That, these are, whether the money comes from the DDA or the money comes from the city's general fund, whoever's donating to these events, you're donating to the events, you're donating to the community as opposed to here or there, if that makes sense.
I know it's come up with the Winter Fest and Winter Market in the past, that when we've had discussions around sponsorship, it was that our sponsorships should be covering the event. So I'm just, now that we're theoretically saving 50%, what's the plan with those city funds?
Well, so one of the ironies of this whole situation is that while this agreement does, essentially guarantee a contribution to the city, it is actually still a net loss when compared to, at least for the past 5-6 fiscal years, the DDA had been making bond repayments back to the city of the amount of $300,000 plus a year. So, in that sense, those funds went to the general fund, and you wouldn't be able to discern where they went to, but in net, there is no actual cost savings to the city. It all sort of
not volunteer dollars. So we're now claiming that no volunteer dollars, almost, it sounds like, goes to some of the events. If we had $40,000 that were given to Light the Night, for example, theoretically we're saving a portion of that now. So are we?
They're contributing to the event.
I know, but are we going to make the event even better, or are we going to add more events? Theoretically, there should be some amount of donations that we're saving. So are we doing that by, we're going to spend them and make the event even better, or are we going to move them to a different event?
Well, that's subject to what decisions get made at the community services in future budget years. So the budget that we haven't proposed in front of mayor and council for action at the next council meeting has the priorities that are reflected. I do want to keep in mind that I want to make sure the focus is also on the fact that $600,000 worth of city tax revenue is being captured by the DDA because we've agreed to forego that revenue to foster the goals and ambitions of making a better downtown area. So there's already lots of collaboration and lots of funding that comes from the city on this, and this is just an attempt to recognize reasonable expenses that the city has for events and things of that nature. My time, the finance director's time, Drew Benson's time, etc. So I don't want to lose track of the fact that I appreciate making sure that we're being fair here, but I mean ultimately I think the city's very fair in that the majority of their budget's coming from city tax capture, and the amount of tax capture that they're realizing in the city of Wixom is disproportionately large because of the way the district was set up. The district was set up with a lot of residential component when it was empty, right? And now a lot of that residential component has been built up, and as you mentioned, the baseline tax capture, there was no baseline tax capture on most of the buildings that are in the DDA. So they're capturing 100% of the city revenue on those buildings, right? So this is just an effort to make sure that the city receives some reimbursement, some of the real costs that they have, right? So these events that are in downtown are events that the DDA and the businesses downtown benefit from in a real way, right? There's traffic that gets generated, business that gets generated, and that cost capture allows us to get some of those monies back. We're doing things that the DDA would otherwise have to spend money on themselves. They're not, so they're contributing towards our costs for those events that are downtown that are driving traffic to the downtown area. So I mean, it goes both ways is what I'm trying to focus on there, I guess, is all I'm trying to get across.
I try to balance that against, I know we've had like micro discussions about grants for businesses or whatnot, and I want to make sure that we're not going to leave ourselves no tools or too much funding or too little funding to accomplish some of
They're going to be the envy of DDAs in the area, I can tell you that. So.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Just a comment, I believe, from reading past minutes, this was unanimously approved?
Absolutely.
Okay, by DDA.
Yeah.
And it's a one-year contract, so if the modifications are needed for next year, based on the amount as well as some of the details of it, I think we'll make them, so.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to adopt a memorandum of understanding and cooperative services agreement between the City of Wixom and the Wixom Downtown Development Authority for service cost sharing for the period of July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That completes the new business portion of tonight's meeting, and we move on to the second call to the public. I'll again read those rules. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of the council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Do we have anybody for the second call to the public? Come on up to the podium, state your name and address, and what's on your mind.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Councilman. My name is Gwen, G-W-E-N, Springer. I live at 50114 Helfer Boulevard in the Leisure Co-op community, senior community, at the corner of Wixom Road and Grand River, where our community is right across the road from there. I have two questions and concerns for the council tonight. We also have recently reviewed our occupancy agreement, which are the rules that we operate as a community under. and all of our residents have those, and our new residents coming in, those are shared with them as well. So pause that. We recently had a horrendous expense due to flushable wipes, okay? Most of you are probably aware that they're really not flushable. Our research has shown that the FDA does not prohibit, they don't even test that particular product. If it was cosmetic in nature, they would, and they would be asked to specify lots of different things that flushables aren't. So my concern is we did just create proposed changes to our occupancy agreement, which states only body waste and toilet paper is to be flushed. And there's a couple other things that fall under that category, but underneath it says violators will be fined $500 and be subject to asked to move out of our community. And our bylaws support that ability for us to fine them if their behavior against our rules creates an expense that we incur. Is that okay? So it would help us, A, I don't know if you've ever considered a city ordinance about them, and B, would you consider a city ordinance restricting the flushing of flushable wipes in the city of Wixom? Or actually anything besides the two things I mentioned. That's my first one.
Really not supposed to, but...
Just a clarification that we have in the water bills in the past, did public service education on flushable wipes.
Oh, okay. See, with our community the way it is, as an individual occupant in leisure, I don't see the water bill. Only the treasurer does, okay? And then we divide the water bill among all the residents, and that's how we pay for our water. Yeah. So if you would take that under consideration, I would greatly appreciate that. Okay, my second one is, with the expansion of Grand River Avenue, which is creeping closer and closer to our community, and originally the flags for the expansion were on the Meyer side of Grand River, and as of yesterday, now they're on our side of Grand River as well. So the question is, if you can help me, I have checked under the Road Commission of Oakland County, nothing is listed there. Under MDOT, nothing in regard to that expansion is there. So is that a city of Wixom going to take care of that from Napier toward Grand River? That would be my first question. But the biggest question is the city considering expanding a green sound barrier for our senior community for all this traffic?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Do we have anybody else for the call to the public? Seeing none, I'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager's comments. City Manager Brown?
Thank you, Your Honor. So the city manager update has one major item in it that I wanted to cover, and that's an update that was made apparent with the earlier report from Interim Fire Chief Brad Geisler, that we did want to announce that he has been appointed as the Interim Fire Chief for the city of Wixom. Captain Brad Geisler has accepted the opportunity to lead the fire department as that Interim Fire Chief. And he did take the oath of office on May 5th to accept that position. Some highlights of his background and career: 20 years of service with the Wickson Fire Department in a variety of capacities: firefighter, EMT, senior firefighters, fire inspector, lieutenant, captain, fire marshal, and now the interim fire chief. graduate of Eastern Michigan University. As a parent of 3 kids that are attending or have graduated from Eastern, I can appreciate that. Go Eagles. And then he was a graduate of the Eastern Michigan University School of Fire Staff and Command. He has certifications in skills in hazardous materials, confined spaces, rope rescue, water and ice rescue, fire plant examiner, and field training officer, and a longtime resident of the city of Wixom with his wife Jamie and 3 daughters, Michaela, Addison, and Peyton. So there's a notice in there that the Public Safety Director, Ron Moore, and I were pleased to work with Brad Geisler in his new added capacity of interim fire chief, and we wanted to make sure we recognize that tonight. Other than that, I just had the usual dates to remember that are provided in the rest of the document. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Very good. Assistant City Manager Benson?
I do, just one. I wanted to give a shout out to our friends at the Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. We've been working on and successfully carried out the first of hopefully many business retention visits together to help promote the Love the Lakes campaign that they're doing to promote Lakes Area Chamber members, and specifically we joined to also celebrate them as Wixom businesses. We had a couple very good visits, including our friends at AFC Holcroft and their new expansion. We got a chance to see the inside of that. Fiberglass installation, Motor City Car Wash, and there were others. So I just wanted to publicly thank the Chamber for actively working with us to partner and to do that and to celebrate our business community. Also, a shout out to our friends at Automation Alley. They had their Integrate conference today at the Suburban Showplace Collection in Novi. There were a couple of Wixom businesses in attendance there, and it was cool to see kind of what the future of automation and Industry 4.0, to see how well our county and really our region are doing in trying to adopt and promote the next generation of industry. So that's all I have.
Good, thank you. Council comments. Councilmember Berman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 comments this evening. First and foremost, thank you for the commitment to Interim Chief Geisler for stepping up and serving, continuing to serve our community. I appreciate that very much. Second would be regarding the discussion we tabled this evening. I would be a proponent of us either having a special meeting to untable this to discuss it further, or on an evening that we have a light agenda. I would like to discuss it further and remove it from that. I'm just not sure that maybe on a meeting like tonight where we had an hour and a half of business was the appropriate time. And the third thing was regarding the digital signs in downtown. I was shocked that that didn't pass, which is fine, but I did note that it's been already advertised on our website for sponsorships that they were going to be getting this. So I'm a little concerned that maybe the cart was put before the horse there and advertising these sponsorships, and what we're going to do to compensate individuals or businesses that have already agreed to sponsor now that we're not going to have these signs. Just a concern. So.
Thanks. Councilmember Gatchel.
Thank you. Relating to the comments made during the call to the public, we certainly wish everyone would stop using the wipes. They are not flushable. They cause us expense and headache at the wastewater treatment plant. Unfortunately, and you think your community might run into this, it's going to be tough to enforce. You don't know where exactly they're coming from. So unfortunately, as it comes to us creating an ordinance, it'd be nice if people just follow the ordinance, but I would suspect there'd be a lot of people who don't stop using them, so it'd be a little bit difficult for us to enforce, but we fully support you trying to get people to stop using them because it is not beneficial for the city either. And then when it comes to the tabled discussion, I think it's unfortunate that we tabled that. Sounds like the budget is on the next agenda from a comment that was made, so If there's a presentation that goes along with that, I doubt we're going to move that from the table and discuss it. So we're really looking at probably quite a delay here and needing to possibly have a special meeting just to cover it, which I think is unfortunate. I know we don't enjoy staying late, but it's better to get city business done rather than push it off just because it's going to take a while to get through. So I think it is unfortunate that was tabled tonight instead of brought back for discussion later in the meeting. Hopefully we can get to it at some point in the future, but it really just kind of jeopardizes the entire situation of getting anything on the ballot later this year. And that means next year being an odd year, we're probably looking at next November, which I think is unfortunately a complete waste of time that we've tabled it. So those are my comments. Disappointed. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you to Interim Chief Geisler for stepping up and filling the position. And I know probably a lot went through your decision process, but I want you to know, and I think I speak for council, and I know I speak for council, and council supports the fire department and all the things that you need, and certainly open ears here to make sure the fire department gets what they need in the next during your term, however long it may be, as fire chief. Thank you. Secondly, we kind of gloss over the consent agenda sometimes, and I wanted to acknowledge and thank the Planning Commission. The March 28th meeting, I don't know how thoroughly the minutes were read, but there was some really good discussion topics in there, very thoroughly vetted, lots of good questions, a debate right down to the wire, and they weren't all unanimous on the votes, and that's a mark to me of a good commission and a good council, and we saw some of that tonight on our council. But I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the Planning Commission for their hard work. A lot going on in the city of Wixom right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to first thank Anna Kulis-Rosenthal for her many contributions to the city. We certainly will miss her, but we're excited as she moves on to an exciting opportunity. God bless you, Anna. Is her last day tomorrow?
It is tomorrow, last working day, yeah.
Gotcha. It was a long night, but the budget sessions went well, last week. Thank you for staff and their efforts for staying so late to get it done. I'll try to zip through these. It's been quite a busy couple of weeks here in Wixom. Wall Lake Western groundbreaking was last week. The additions to the school are going to be fantastic. Also, let me read all this. Also, Longhorn's now open in Wixom. Beautiful restaurant, great food. Derby Day had fantastic weather. Mayor celebrated a birthday. Chief Roberts, congrats on his retirement. And congratulations, Fire Chief Geisler, as our interim. Lots happening in Wixom. It's fun to be here. That's it.
You're good. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Interim Chief Geisler, thank you so much for stepping up. I know your 20 years of service to Wixom and your experience definitely fit the position, so congratulations and thank you for doing that. Regarding the charter committee notes, I as well would like to see perhaps the committee go and condense these 28 points down to the ones that we really should be discussing, because Michigan Public Act supersedes some of the discussions. We'll get those off the list and consolidate it, and maybe we can have that discussion in a rather expedient fashion. The rate we were going at another 4 hours on each of those 28 points. So maybe some consolidation could occur. Regarding flushable wipes, again, with F&V operations, and I've asked them many times in the past to include a flyer in the water bills, but if everybody's not receiving an individual water bill, perhaps we could do something on our website banner. The most effective one was it's a toilet, not a trash can, and it showed what should not be flushed down the toilet. Maybe we can put that in the website banner and I think that's all I have.
Yeah, Tim, and regarding the flushable wipes, maybe we can also come up with a letter and send it off to all the residents at the co-op, telling them what can and can't be and that. And then I just want to thank Chief Geisler for stepping up and accepting the interim position. I'm very happy for you. I know the fire department's in good hands with you, and as Councilmember Sharp said, if you need anything, you know you've got council's full support. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Support. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.